Hi, everyone. Thank you to joining us today at our session. I hope you're having a great evening or day. We're having how to stand out in your MBA application session today. We have two wonderful speakers with us today, Cal Futterman and Mick Weigel. Thank you so much for joining us today, guys. We're so happy to have you, and thank you for making it. Cal Futterman serves as an assistant director of graduate admissions at Nova Southeastern University in Huizenga College of Business and Entrepreneurship. His academic and professional experiences have helped him develop strong communication and marketing skills, as well as genuine desire to help people and make the world more inclusive and accessible place. He has been proactive in following his passions by creating opportunities for himself and others when they did not already exist. And we have also our second guest speaker, Mike Weigel, International Undergraduate Recruiters, who also will present us today. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Cal, the floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And good evening as well to those of you joining us. As mentioned, my name is Cal Futterman. I'm the Assistant Director of Graduate Admissions here at Nova Southeastern University, specifically within our Huizenga College of Business and Entrepreneurship. So I have a brief presentation that I'm going to go over with you all today to talk a little bit about our university, the programs we have here, and how to stand out during the application process for an MBA program. So go ahead and get started. The first thing that I want to start off with is our namesake. So for those of you who don't know, our college, the Huizenga College of Business, was named after Wayne Huizenga. He was a very big philanthropist and entrepreneur in the South Florida area. He's created 3 Fortune 500 companies. He owned 3 major sports teams in South Florida. So the Marlins, Panthers, and Dolphins. For those of you that are big hockey fans, Panthers have won the last couple of Stanley Cups. So we've been super happy about that. And we know he'd be proud as well. And he was also a 5-time recipient of Financial World Magazine CEO of the Year. So Mr. Huizenga just provided so much to the South Florida and the U.S. in general, and really everything that we do here, we try to honor him. He did pass a few years ago, but we still try to hold his values present in everything that we teach here with leadership, entrepreneurship, and management. So a little bit about why students typically would decide to come to NSU. So at NSU, students are the focus of institutional priorities, resource decisions, and planning. We really advocate for our students here. We want to make sure that you're successful and have as much opportunities for professional development as possible. It's a good-sized university here. We are smaller than others, but I like that. I did do my undergraduate studies here because it felt more of a community where you really get to build relationships with your classmates, your professors, the staff members at the university, and networking is just so important. So as part of the programs, you'll have opportunities for experiential learning, and you'll have the opportunity to get some insight from top industry leaders within our corporate partners. We have over 100 corporate partners that they have speakers come in to talk with our students, to network with our students. They'll guest lecture in classes, and they'll also work with our students to hire them on for internships and postgraduate work opportunities. That's really one of the big reasons that students come here. There's so many opportunities in this area, and the connections that we have are really going to help you get out into the career and build the life that you're looking for. And again, it's not just a place to get a degree, but it really does feel like a home. I know it did for me, and that's why I decided to come here. But it's also an extremely vibrant and diverse university. We have students from over 100 countries. We have students from all 50 states in the U.S. And everyone gets along so well here. There's over 100 student organizations, so there's something for everybody to get involved in. And if there's something that we don't have here, it is very easy to create that. So I'm just going to briefly cover some of the programs that we have here. Most of our business students, our international business students, typically will come into our MBA program. But for those of you that are interested also in accounting, marketing, finance, we have programs in those as well. Within our MBA program, we also have a whole bunch of different specializations that you can focus on. And mostly my F1 students typically will gear towards our STEM programs. So you have that benefit for your STEM OPT. And those would be our business intelligence and analytics, process improvement, and supply chain management and operational systems. You don't have to do those, but we are unique in that our business school does have quite a bit of STEM designated programs. So I always make sure that our international students are aware of that, because the OPT benefits are very, very important. And then just a couple of other programs that we do offer here. We have our human resource management, our public administration, and then our real estate development for anyone that is interested in those topics as well. Accreditations is something super important when you're looking at where to study. So NSU does have both AACSB accreditation and NASPA accreditation. First, with the AACSB accreditation, this is the highest standard of achievement for a business university. Only 6% of business schools in the entire world have this accreditation. So essentially, any university with this accreditation you can work in and your degree will be recognized. It is very important to consider that if you plan to study internationally or work internationally. To have a degree that will be recognized. And then NASPA is another accreditation specifically for our public administration program. So if you do plan to work in government, looking for that accreditation is also very important for those degrees. So just some general admission requirements. This is for our program, but many US master's programs have pretty similar admission requirements. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that and then talk about how you could stand out. So first, you would have to complete an online application. You will need to have a conferred or awarded bachelor's degree from a regionally accredited US university or an equivalent degree if you had done your undergraduate studies either in your country or in another country outside of the US. The transcript will need to show the actual date to have the evaluation done. If you have not finished your program yet, my suggestion is please wait until you do and then have that process completed. Most universities will require an official transcript evaluation from a NACES accredited organization. That's just a general requirement for most US universities for master's programs if you completed your bachelor's degree outside of the US. So this process is going to convert your degree and your grades into the US equivalent. Every country has its own grading system. A lot of universities in the US just don't have the staff that can actually figure out the conversion for each individual country. So we work with a handful of companies that do this for us. If you are interested in applying with us, I will be more than happy to help walk you through that process. It's not too difficult, but happy to take questions on that later if anyone has. And then we also will require an English proficiency exam if your degree was not taught in English. So if you did study in an English speaking country, or if the university you attended did teach your program in English, we can take a letter from the college verifying that. Otherwise, many of our students will take either the TOEFL, IELTS, or Duolingo tests. If you do take one of those exams, just please note that the scores have to be within a 2-year span to be considered. And then additional documentation may be required, such as a resume, a personal statement, recommendation letters, GRE or GMAT, That could also depend on the program. We currently are not requiring GRE or GMAT scores, but it is something to consider, as many universities do still require that. Standing out at NSU. So every MBA program in the US is going to look for different requirements to stand out. Primarily here at NSU, we're largely GPA based. So the best thing that you can do for yourselves if you're interested in coming here is make sure to study hard and learn as much as you can, understand as much as you can, and perform as well as you can in your undergraduate program. That is majority of the decision is going to be based on your GPA. The resume is also the next most important component. So it's really important to get involved in extracurricular activities if possible. The more that you can do in a business field, the better. Work experience, we don't require work experience because we do know a lot of jobs do require having the business master's degree. So we don't require that, but if you do have some work experience, it will not hurt you. But we just don't want to have a program that students are not able to get into without having the work experience. So don't worry about that. But I would say while you're still in your bachelor's degree program, get as involved as you can. And then with the personal statement, sometimes they will ask for this as well. Our suggestion, please avoid ChatGPT. It is very easy for our faculty and review members to tell if something is AI generated. They really, when they're asking, or a program's asking for a personal statement, they really want to hear about who you are and why specifically you want their MBA program, and how you believe that the university will help you get to where you want to go. The more that you can focus on that and tell that from the heart in your own words, the better. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Mick, who can talk a little bit more about some of our dual admission programs for any of you that are still in high school and maybe looking to pursue an undergraduate program.
Yeah, thanks, Cal. Actually, just something that you mentioned with the ChatGPT, I just wanted to add to that, because we see a lot of ChatGPT as well. And just like Cal said, you can tell when ChatGPT is used. But I also think that you're doing yourself a disservice by using it, because, like Cal said, this is a chance to tell your story and make your application stand out, whether it's for undergrad or MBA or whatever it is. And by using ChatGPT to do that, you're really not letting your actual individual story be told. So we run into that a lot with the undergraduate students. And he's absolutely right. You would definitely want to avoid that. But I wanted to talk a little bit. I don't work directly with MBA students, but we do have two programs that are geared more towards undergraduate students, but have an MBA component. And so I wanted to let you guys know about this, because depending on the situation you're in, there can be multiple ways to be admitted to an MBA program. It doesn't necessarily have to follow the track of you finish high school, you get a bachelor's degree, and then you apply to the MBA program. And I'm sure I don't know other universities offhand that have these type of programs in the US. I'm sure there are. But the first is called dual admission. And so basically what dual admission is if you're a high school student right now, or you're an undergraduate university student in certain circumstances, you can apply to Nova Southeastern University dual admission, which means that you can apply to be accepted to our undergraduate program and the MBA program at the same time. And so you'll notice with that program, you can earn your bachelor's degree and your MBA in 5.5 years. Which is 4 plus 1.5. Typically an undergraduate program will take you 4, which you'll see there. And then the MBA amount can vary. Cal, what would you say the average MBA time is?
The average is definitely 1.5 years. But
year and a half, but some can take longer.
But some could take 2 to 2.5, and some will even do it at 1. So we just use 1.5 as our average.
And so you'll be on that track to get both of those degrees. But you'll also, through your coursework in the undergraduate level, you'll have experiential learning opportunities, so kind of hands-on opportunities You'll get practice using technology that's commonly used out there in the marketplace. I mean, that's obviously very important because technology is advancing so fast and so many businesses are adopting it. You're going to want to make sure you get hands-on experience with that, kind of like Cal was saying, to build up your resume. And you'll learn those other soft skills. Very important, being able to communicate, being able to talk, public speaking, etc. So if any of you are currently in high school or you're an undergraduate student who hasn't finished your undergraduate degree, but you might want to transfer to the US to finish your undergraduate degree, you can apply for NSU. You would apply for the undergraduate. In this case, you'd apply for the undergraduate program, again, online or through Common App. And then you'd submit a second supplemental application called the Premier Programs application. And then in the springtime, you would interview for acceptance to that. And so if you're a high school student and you want to be admitted dual admission, you would need a 3.0 weighted GPA and then one of either SAT, ACT, or the CLT exam. And then I forgot to put here, but Cal mentioned it. If your high school or university, the undergraduate university is not all in English, you would also have to have an English proficiency exam like TOEFL, IELTS, or Duolingo. And then if you're a transfer student, you need to have a 3.0 GPA to transfer over. And you have to have a minimum of 30 transfer credits. And then again, you just do applications online and then you'd interview, and then you would be admitted to, of course, the undergraduate program, but also the MBA program, which is just peace of mind. So again, if you're there in Ukraine right now at a university and you think, well, I'd like to finish my university degree and then go to the US to get my MBA, you could actually, if you wanted to, transfer over, complete your undergraduate degree at NSU. So, if you've done maybe 2 years at your university in Ukraine, you could transfer over, do the final 2 years at NSU for your undergrad, and then go right over to Cal and the MBA program. And then the kind of the key requirement for graduate school once you get started in the undergrad program at NSU is you need to maintain a 3.0 GPA throughout your time there in the undergraduate program. And then we have one other program that will allow students to go right from high school or a current undergraduate university program that they're in to be admitted to the MBA program is the Huizenga Business Innovation Academy. And that's a 3+1 you'll see here up top. So with that particular program, you get your undergraduate degree in 3 years and your MBA in 4. So it's a little bit more accelerated, you'll see, compared to the 5.5 years. Which is fantastic because that's less expensive. We're always worried about scholarships, but not having to go to school for an extra year and a half is probably better than a scholarship because it's definitely cheaper and you're able to get out into the workplace faster. So you can start earning money faster. And students who get this, it's the same process. You'd apply for the undergraduate admission online, then you apply for the Premier programs, and you'd interview for that in the spring. So you'll see down here, it's the exact same requirements as the dual admission. But students who will get a $1,000 a year stackable undergraduate scholarship and 20% off of the MBA tuition in their last year. And very similar, you're going to get a lot of hands-on experience in your undergraduate years. You're going to get a venture creation minor. So again, this is for entrepreneurship. This is for starting students who want to start their own business. And so you get a venture creation minor, which will kind of get you that experience in starting your own business and that hands-on experience, which I think at least at the undergraduate level at NSU, hands-on experience, experiential learning is very, very important. So it's not just about sitting in a classroom. It's about getting that actual experience in the field that you want to get into. So my point in talking about those two programs is there are lots of different ways to be admitted to an MBA program. It doesn't necessarily have to follow one trajectory. So when you're looking at universities in the US, you might know you want to go on and get an MBA and you're at high school right now, or you're currently an undergraduate at a university in Ukraine and you think, well, I would like to transfer and then maybe do an MBA. There are all kinds of different programs where you could do that and get admitted to that MBA program, maybe earlier than you thought would be possible for you. And I think as far as standing out and these two particular programs, but probably just in general with your graduate application is getting that experience. So, for example, if you're looking at this Huizenga Business Innovation Academy, let's say you're a senior in high school and you're going into your interview for this program and you think, how am I going to stand out? I think a good way to stand out, and Cal sort of talked about this a bit, was having that experience. He mentioned the importance of the resume. So even in high school, you're in high school, you probably haven't started your own business, although some of you might have, and we definitely have students who do that. But I've seen students who've earned this scholarship who started nonprofits, who maybe started clubs or started organizations at their university. So it doesn't necessarily have to be this rigid idea of I started my own business, I get the scholarship for entrepreneurship, but they're going to want to see that you're active in the area. So I think that's really important. And that's something I saw with my own undergraduate experience. I didn't go to NSU and I didn't study business, but when I went to look for graduate schools, one of the big things that they were looking for was experience, which I didn't do because I didn't realize the importance of it. So that I think that's an important way to stand out. And Cal, I actually had a question for you, because you mentioned GRE and GMAT is not required. Would you say that for students interested in applying to MBAs in the U.S., even if a university doesn't require the GRE, for example, would you still recommend that they take it? And the reason I ask is because some universities have the SAT exam as optional, but I would still recommend a student take that SAT because many universities will give them more scholarship money with a higher SAT score, even if it's optional. What's your thoughts about the GRE?
From on the graduate side, it works a little bit differently. Again, I can't speak on every university. Some may give more funding for that. At the master's level here, the funding is not tied anything related to the GRE or GMAT. So if you're only looking at coming to NSU for your master's program, I would not suggest you take the exam. But if, let's say, you're looking at a few schools in the US and some of them require it, some don't, I believe you can select a few universities to send the score to at no charge. I always tell students, if you're planning to take it anyway, use your free selections to send it to the schools that do require it. Or if there's other universities you're looking at, ask them the question, if you do send the score, is there opportunity for funding based on certain scores? We don't do that. Our funding in the master's program is strictly based off of undergraduate GPA. So I would not suggest doing that for our program. But one other point that I wanted to mention, unrelated to that, just another thing to look at when considering studying at a university. Do some research into the faculty that are going to be teaching in the program that you're interested in. Most universities have a webpage where you can read about the background of the professors in the program, what they studied and what they're actually researching and teaching. We have really small class sizes here. So each individual class will have about 20 to 25 students in it. So you're going to know your professor personally, and they're going to know you. It's really important, I think, to choose a university that also the professors are specializing in something that you're interested in. All of our professors have worked in their industry, and then they had studied to get their PhDs, and now they're teaching in our program about how to actually apply the knowledge in the field. So they're bringing actual work experience from the corporate industry of marketing, human resources, entrepreneurship, management, into the classroom. I think that's very important when considering a university, to make sure that the professors you're going to be learning from also have the experience. And if there's research projects or anything that you're also interested in doing while you're a student, finding a university that has professors studying those things, where you could reach out to them and they know who you are, is going to be very important. So that was the last point that I wanted to mention when looking also just at where you would like to study.
Actually, Cal, I made that mistake when I went into my grad program, because I selected my grad program, and I'm sure a lot of you will understand this, based off of rankings. I said, oh, it's really highly ranked. It's really well thought of. And I got admitted, and I went. I didn't even visit campus or anything. And I went, and I had a miserable experience because the professors didn't specialize in what I wanted to do. And so, sure, the rankings were great, and sure, it had a great reputation, but then I got stuck in a position where I couldn't do my research on something that I wanted to do because the professors didn't do that. And if I had, just like Cal said, gone to the university website and looked at the professors I'd be studying with and saw what they were specializing in, I could have avoided that.
Yeah. But I think with that, I'd say if there's any questions, we'd be happy to open the floor for some questions.
Guys, thank you so much for your valuable presentation. I think it will be helpful for generations of students who are applying to MBA or bachelor's program at Nova University. We're definitely going to use your presentation and recording for the generations beyond today's session. So thank you so much for making it today. Please feel free, dear participants, to write down your questions in chat in any of the platforms the stream is going to. We're happy to answer your questions. And while we are waiting for questions from chat, I'll gladly ask you some questions that we have reserved from our students, which are frequently asked about the MBA program. So the first one would be, what qualities do MBA programs value the most in international applicants beyond GMAT or GRE scores?
Yeah, so like I said, the program just on paper typically is looking to make sure that you are credentialed, like you have taken some. Ideally, you will have taken some business courses. Our program is not going to hold that against you if you don't. We would add in a semester at the beginning, let's say if you don't have any sort of a business background. But ideally, for your sake, if you have taken some business courses, that definitely will help. But wanting to putting in effort is a big thing, like going above and beyond in anything you do, really. But making connections, networking is huge everywhere, especially in South Florida. So like I said, with the resume, as much as you can have on there of different things that you can also bring to the university. And like Mick was mentioning, we have had students come in that have started their own organizations, businesses, nonprofits. Opportunities like that also is a unique opportunity now for you to partner with the university that you're studying at, and you can help each other. So the university will promote what you're doing, and you'll have the opportunity while you're studying here to actually learn and continue to grow and build on what you've created for yourself. I would say those are some pretty important qualities that they would look for.
Thank you so much for your valuable response. And I have another question for you. So what are some underrated aspects of MBA applications that can make a big difference? I know you mentioned all of the aspects, but maybe something that students don't usually take the account of it deserves.
That's a good question. Like that also is going to depend a little bit on the school. But one thing I would suggest is reach out. Like if you're interested in applying to a university, like reach out and speak with someone at the university before actually applying. We get a lot of applications from students that we have never spoken with. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I know for me and the students that I speak with before they actually apply, like we can give a much better understanding to the student of how the actual process is going to work. Just little nuances that might not be listed on the website that we can explain like verbally how things are going to work, what the time frame will look like, what documents we're going to need. Because it doesn't, some of the programs also required additional documentation that might not be something you have seen a specific line on a website for. Like our accelerated programs typically require additional, they might require the resume, or they might require a recommendation letter, where some of the other programs don't. So if you are looking and seriously considering going somewhere, I would suggest please reach out and speak to someone at the university before you actually apply. Some universities also will help reduce application fees if you attend like webinars or virtual sessions. That's not everywhere. Sometimes we do that, sometimes we don't. It depends. But I know with my international students, that's something that on occasion I try to make a case for with just conversion rates of currencies. I know it can be a challenge sometimes to actually make the payment. So there are cases where I might tell a student, hey, if you would come listen, hear from some of our professors, hear from some of our other teammates that work at the university. And then if you can provide some of these documents before you actually apply, so we can do almost like a pre-screen, that helps us make a case to make it easier on your end to get through the application process. Again, every university is different, but I know just like with SEVIS fees and with immigration attorney fees and other things that our international students experience, where we can help to minimize costs, we do our best to do that. But we also need to know who you are and can have conversations with you in order to do that.
Thank you so much. I believe our students very much satisfied with your response. And another question from our students. So, what mistakes do international students often make in their personal essays, or just in general in their essays, and how then they can avoid them? So I know you already mentioned about ChatGPT, and Education USA agrees with you completely. We do not support using ChatGPT as a tool for creating ideas. The ideas should be your own. But maybe other than that, any other aspects specifically for international students?
Yeah, and like there are, I don't mean to say that like don't ever use it. It's just certain situations, like when a professor is going to read a letter, like they want to know that it's from the heart, and it's very easy to tell when things are written like that are auto-generated. But other mistakes that they can see is a lot of times we'll get letters where essentially it's really the student doesn't even talk about why they want to come to the university. It's almost like essentially saying things along the lines of here's why, or how can you help me, essentially, or like what can you offer. I think the university typically would take a better approach. Like it would come across better if you're telling them what you can bring to their community. And then as a result of seeing that, that's when they're going to say, okay, we hear you, we see what you can bring, we want to have you here, here's what we want to offer you to have you come here. I think sometimes it's just backwards, where it's like, how do I get scholarships? The scholarships sometimes are there, sometimes they're not there. But if they are there, you want to show why you should be considered, not just ask for a full ride, essentially, without providing context as to why you believe you should deserve that. I think that's a very common, I don't even know if I want to say mistake is the right word, but I would say the students that I have seen tend to get more funding are those that are like, here's what I've done during my previous studies, or here's what I would like to bring to your university. Anything that you can do to help me do this is appreciated. Something like that, I think, would give you a better chance of receiving that, if that makes sense.
Cal, thank you so much for sharing. It's incredibly helpful and useful to hear internal perspective from the university side. Thank you so much for sharing it. And Mick, if you don't mind, I have a question for you, since you've mentioned about transfer students from Ukraine, possible theoretical Ukrainian universities who want to study at your university. So, what do you think? Are there any like differences in in qualities of a student, like who is going through the bachelor's program and transfer students. So is there any difference between them? At what qualities you look in during admission process?
Well, I think there are two answers to that. So one, just to be admitted, it's pretty cut and dry. You just need your 3.0 GPA. You need your NACES credit evaluation that Cal talked about if you attended a university outside the U.S. And then if your university isn't all in English, then we'd need one of those English proficiency exams. So just to be admitted, those are the requirements. And everyone who gets admitted will receive a scholarship, the amount of which will vary based off of generally your GPA if you're transferring from another school. But I do think the second part to that question is very similar to what Cal just spoke about. And that's kind of the piece about standing out, where, at the undergraduate level, we probably even have more applications than MBA. I know there's been years where I've had 2,000 undergraduate international applicants. And as a point of reference, maybe 20 signed up to do Zoom meetings with me. So just imagine there's 2,000 applicants, only 20 actually wanted to talk to me. I don't blame them. I wouldn't want it to talk to me either, but it just kind of stands out. And, if you have 2,000 students you're working with, like Cal said, they just go on the website and they apply and they don't reply to your emails and they don't come to any events, virtual events, then that student doesn't stand out to you at all. You don't know who that student is. You're not willing to fight for them, as compared to a student who replies to your emails right away, who says, hey, I'd like to do a Zoom call with you. I have some questions about the university that the answers aren't on the website. Now I'm going to remember that student. I'll remember those 20 students that signed up the Zoom for me. I'll recognize them if I see them. If I come across their names 3 years later, I'll remember that student, as opposed to somebody who just applied online and never engaged with me. And I think just for selfish reasons for you all, it behooves you, it benefits you to engage it like that, because, Cal mentioned the MBA scholarships. I think it's a little similar, not exactly for undergrad, because a lot of it's done by just like an AI algorithm in terms of how much scholarship is awarded. But there have been cases over the years where a student comes and they say, and this goes right into what Cal said, prove he's right, but I'll have students who will come and say, hey, this is a little bit too expensive for me. Can you give me more scholarship money? Now, which two people do you think I'm going to go to fight for? Will I fight for the person who has never replied to one of the 30 emails I send them asking for transcripts or something? Or am I going to reply to the person who am I going to help the person who always replies to me, who did a Zoom with me, who had questions? Obviously, you're going to go to bat more for the person that has been very engaged in the process. So I think that's the second part of that. And I don't think that's just NSU or me. I think most universities are the same way.
Yeah, I can add a little bit also on that. Like another thing that when a university, like when you're communicative with them and they know who you are, let's say we're getting close to a deadline, an application deadline, for an example. If there's a student that I've been working with for a few months and we're just waiting on a document to come in, and maybe it comes in 3 or 4 days after the deadline, but the student has been replying to all of my communications and we've met them. We know who they are. We know their intention is to attend. There are cases that we can make a case to accept a document a couple of days beyond the deadline and say, okay, you've been in communication with us. It was not your fault that the score didn't get to us on time. We're not going to penalize you for that. But again, if we don't know that and we've never heard from you as the student, and the document comes in after the deadline, and typically it would just, your application would be deferred to the next intake. Or if maybe everything is here, but I have an international student that I know right now that the visa wait times for an appointment in your country maybe are a little bit longer than what we would hope. I can go to our faculty and say, hey, I really need you to get me a decision on this student before others, because the student that lives right down the street, they're not going to be as heavily impacted on whether they can attend or not if they get their decision a week later. Where as an international student, waiting an extra week, that could mean the difference on whether you can get an emergency visa appointment or not. And that's not something that I think everyone considers, but we do our best to accommodate that where we can. And again, as Mick said, like, if we know who you are because you've scheduled that Zoom meeting with us and you're one of those 20 out of the 2,000 that we've spoken to, and you're telling us, hey, I need some help just because appointments are filling up, it makes it easier on the university to say, okay, I need some help from my other colleagues. Please review the student as soon as possible because we need to get them their I-20. We need to get visa appointment with enough time for them to then schedule all their travel to come here. So that's another thing that sometimes on certain cases universities can do.
Mick and Cal, thank you so much. I already see students taking notes after you, what you're saying right now and in the future, writing down what they should do and should not do. Thank you so much for your response to the question about the application process. So thank you. And since we have no more questions in the chat, I guess we're going to wrap up. It was Calvin Futterman, Assistant Director of Graduate Admissions at Nova Southeastern University at Huizenga College of Business and Entrepreneurship, and Mick Weigel, International Undergraduate Recruiter. Guys, thank you so much for making it today. We were very happy to have you, and our students are very grateful for your time, since you can talk about the admission process about your university, Nova University. I wish you all a great day in the USA, and have a great evening in Ukraine. Thank you so much.